Hey everyone, Josh with Royal Treatment here. Tonight I'm going to tie one of my streamer patterns. It's a little tube Sculpin that I've been working on for a few years. The idea kind of came to me after a trout streamer trip that we took, and the fly that I fished seemed to foul quite a bit, and it was really frustrating. And I was just like, I'm just going to make this into a little tube fly. So I started out with the Pro Sport Fisher Nano tube, clear or black. You can use a micro tube or whatever your favorite tube is. And this is just the first one that happened to be easily accessible to me. I'm going to lay down a base of olive thread, and then I'm going to tie in for the kind of this first body or kind of collar of flash is going to be this UV Polar Chenille. It's called Copper Olive, and it's really kind of this cool olive copper color. And I'm going to basically give 3 wraps of that edge to edge, and it's going to kind of be a little bit of flash, and it's going to give this little halo on the back of the fly. 3 edge to edge, kind of just like that. And I'm just going to lock that down. This fly looks cool, but it is as basic as I can make. If you guys know me, you know that I like a simple fly that is quick and easy and fast to tie. So I have that UV Polar Chenille tied in. I'm going to lay down a little base of thread here. And the idea is that I'm going to lock in a rabbit strip on top. This is olive, black barred olive. And I'm going to lay that right on top, lock it in. And I have my tube needle locked into this HMH tube vise. Makes it really secure. And I kind of also use this to measure things out. So I'm going to cut this right at the back of my tube vise. And that could be a little long, but that's just where I tend to do it. And I get this really uniform length every time now that I do it like that. So that's the beginning of the fly there. Next, I'm going to add my trusty Rootbeer Krystal flash. And I'm going to do basically 3 strands. If I can get the third one to come. There we go, 3 strands. I just pull those guys out of there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and lock them around the thread. So they're doubled over, and just slide them up into place. Now I basically have 6 strands on the bottom of that fly. And I'm going to go ahead and cut them. I'm going to measure them to length here. And I'm going to make them shorter than the end of my piece of rabbit. So they're just a little throat of sparkling crystal flash there. So kind of the way that I like to think of this is this, is the body, and what I'm tying in now is the belly. I'm going to add black ostrich. Now this is not the ostrich that you would use if you were tying steelhead flies. This isn't the stuff that looks like rhea that's super fine. I want it to be a little bit thicker, a little bit stiffer, and have a little bit more body. I'm going to grab maybe 8 to 10 pieces of Herl off of here. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim them all off like that. And then I'm going to try to even up some of these tips, so there's not any really short ones or really long ones. I don't mind them all being a different length, but I don't want them to be just crazy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this in on the bottom. And I don't want it to extend past. I want it to add taper. So I'm going to finish kind of at the end of where that Polar Chenille is. And I'm just tying it right on the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it from the bottom here, rotate my vise, and that way I can make sure that I have a good kind of dispersal of this ostrich all the way around. and not so it's all just on one side. Sometimes I have a tendency to do that. There we go. Lock that into place. Trim that excess. I just whack it on the bottom. Next step, I'm going to add in some double pupil eyes. I like this medium and the orange. It gives kind of this bright kind of bloodshot eye look to it. I think it's appealing for trout and any kind of attacking kind of predator to see that. I'm going to tie this on the bottom, and I'm going to start off with just wrapping one side, do about 10 wraps, and you can see it's tilted heavily, and then I'm just going to grab it with my thumb and pull it back into place like that. And now I'll start wrapping the other direction, and it's going to kind of hold it. And I'm going to do about 10 more of those. And then once I do that, now I'm going to just wrap some wraps right around the base to kind of really tighten that thread up and really help it to stop spinning. So that, even if I left out the next few steps and this was my basic fly, this would be a great looking fly. I'd want to, of course, move that bead back a little bit, but that would be a pretty killer looking fly. But we have a couple more steps left, so I'm going to do a dubbing loop. I like to use this OPST dubbing tool. It's probably my favorite. I like the weight of it, how well it spins, and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to add some ice dub. This is olive, but any kind of dubbing that's similar to this would be great. I'm going to just put that into my dubbing loop. And once I get it in there, I'm going to spread it all out just a little bit. Kind of like that. Secret here is you drape your dubbing loop over your index finger, give it a spin, so it's all kind of going freely all at the same time. Once it kind of gets tight, I'm going to take my bodkin and just kind of pick at it a little bit, help it to break free, set some of those longer fibers out there, and then I'm going to just wrap. And I'm not trying to make a big collar, I'm just trying to add kind of a little flash in the middle of this fly. So I'm not trying to close off that gap between the bead. So a couple wraps to lock that down into place. And then once I get that free, I have this little piece of Velcro that I've added to this comb, and I'm just going to Velcro brush this, pick this dubbing out so it has a little more flash effect to it, just like that. And then I'm going to give this a little collar, and what this is this is actually from a Grizzly saddle hackle dyed olive, and this is maybe almost considered a trash feather, but from tying steelhead flies, this happens to be kind of one of my favorite types of feathers. It's really versatile. So I'm going to lock it in, and I want to give maybe 3 wraps, just going almost right up to the eye. And what that's going to do is that's kind of going to help give this fly a little bit of taper, gives it a little bit of body. It's going to add this little webby long hackle in the middle. And one more. And that looks pretty good, just like that. You can see now it's kind of thickening out and you're getting more of like a little body in there. Now that looks cool. Could finish there too, but we have one more step. And we're gonna do one more dubbing loop. Normally I don't do this intricate of a fly, so this is a little bit different, obviously, if you guys have seen me tie flies, but this is all in my wheelhouse right here. I'm gonna get another piece of rabbit. I'm gonna fan that fur up so it's sticking straight up. This time I'm gonna grab my CDC tool, which if you don't have one, you should have one. These things are epic. And I'm gonna clamp in my rabbit fur, and then I'm just gonna take and trim it right off of the hide. Just like that. So now I have maybe an inch of rabbit fur in there. I'm gonna take and put this right inside that dubbing loop that I just made. And I'm gonna leave it, oops, missed. Just like that. Spread this rabbit out just a little bit. Doesn't need to be packed in too densely. There we go. Give it the old spin off my index finger there. Kind of hold this other fur out of the way so it doesn't all tangle up there. Something like that. Give a couple little picks here to kind of fan this out. And this looks like a pretty good loop. Just like that. And what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to kind of cover up that barbell eye, the base, the top and the bottom. If you can see that. So I had one wrap under the bottom, one wrap over the top. So I kind of did just a basic figure 8. Now I'm gonna finish by wrapping these next couple wraps just right in front. Just like that. Kind of give this thing a little furry Muppet head. Lock it in with a few wraps just like that. Then what I'm going to do is wet my fingers, pull this back, and kind of build up a little head. But what you're going to notice is this rabbit fur is kind of stuck now right on top and right on the bottom. And it kind of has added this little head to the fly. Go ahead and whip finish. And I like to do basically 2, 3 or 4 turn whip finishes right on top of each other. And a lot of people wonder why you need this long reach. Well, this tube fly is specifically why you need it. If I were just using a short whip finish tool, I wouldn't have that clearance over that tube. And lock that in. And there we go. So that's basically what my finished fly looks like. If you guys aren't familiar with tube flies, these things are awesome. So now, pull that off of there. I'm going to trim this. Normally I use a razor blade, and I leave maybe, I don't know, a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch at the top there. I'm going to hit it with my lighter, and it's just going to barely curl back and melt down. Maybe I do one more. You don't want to do too much. You don't want to close up that hole. If it does start to close up, just jam your bodkin in there. And that's basically my finished fly. I'm then going to take a piece of, they call it a hook guide. So we call it also like junction tubing. That's the common term for it, but it's a little piece of silicone. I like this kind of red one. And any color can be used. It doesn't really matter. And you can see there's these couple little barbs on this back of this tube. And I'm just going to force it right down on top of that. It's going to slide all the way in, and then what that does is that gives me this little hot spot in the butt. And boom. There is that finished fly. That is my little tube Sculpin. Down and dirty, quick and easy. Looks really beautiful, has a great look to it. Looks like an ultra technical fly, but is super simple and just the way I like it. Hope you guys enjoy it and you get out and swing one of these flies soon.